What's up, guys? Here's a quick guide on the hybrid, the Holstist. I believe that's how you guys pronounce it. This is just a quick 101 guide that I like to have a balance with. Some people might have a different playstyle with it, but this is my typical playstyle with the uh, hybrids. And so we're not really going to go over the gear per se in this setup, but I will say I do use gloves because it's the main uh, attribute. And we're going to be using bracers for your second set of skills. And while I'm talking about this, I'll be doing this dungeon, so don't mind it that much. It's just something for me to do while I'm recording. So let's get into it. So, as a hybrid, what I like to do is that if I'm feeling lazy and I don't really want to push a bunch of keys to train up my smashes, I choose melee. And in a lot of core settings, I do melee a lot. Um, if I'm looking to do like a certain dungeon that I know that I can be proficient, way more proficient at it than doing the Chi-Kun side of the hybrid, I certainly will do melee. And to be honest with you, with a hybrid and this melee, it's actually way better than it is with a nuker and a than the nuker doing its melee ability, because you got so much better active and smashes. So when it comes to certain group settings, you do have two close-up AoEs, and then you have one AoE that is for Qing Kong. It's a range one. So you do have three AoEs plus weapon. So with that being said, what I like to do, if I'm playing solo and there's no healer, I like to have my steps and my meditation going. However, I'm still trying to figure out which step and which meditation is the best one to have as a setup. But I'm just kind of leveling it to get it to max Chang to figure that out. So, how I have my bar set up is that I have my active always up top, my steps and my med up here. Then I kind of have randomly placed recovery stuff for my health. It's wherever I feel like I can fit them in. So, start off with the smashes. What I do is that I go from lowest recast time to the highest recast time. So here, for instance, I have Boundless Fist of the Cloud at 1, because the recast time is 1.5, and that is with, cast time and cooldown time being maxed out at 50%. That's as high as you can do for a debuff on your skills to make it to where you can use your skills more often. So it goes from 3.3 seconds to 1.5. So that's my fastest skill that I can use a lot of the time. And then it just gradually grows from there. For the last skill I have on my bar is going to be the longest one, which is, for me, it's going to be 10 seconds. Originally, 20 seconds. And then up top, I kind of have a couple. I have the what is this called? It's one of the range ones. It's my stun ability, so I can go out of range and kind of hit it. It's just something to place right there, train up that skill where it's not being left behind. And then I have, for as a hybrid, my two AoE close range nukers. For if I'm in the predicament of doing, let's say, Patla or LLGC, I'll have this bar set up. As you can see, I don't have any of that meditation or these steps. And that's just how I preference it since it's all in one, I activate it and then switch over. I don't have to worry about it anymore. So how I have it set up is basically how I have my smashes set up, but in a type of way that will make sense here in a second. So how I have it set up is I grab all my instant casts first, everything that doesn't require a casting time. That way I can instantly cast it and do that damage output bonus, kind of like a DPS build. So I have all those lined up from the fastest skill to the slowest skill. And then I go from the lowest casting time skill to the highest. And then I have my AoE up top. I do have a couple debuffs and kind of shield, per se, up here. And then I just have random conquer poison resistance, because at the time I slapped this together right here, I was running the RTD quests that led into Cave of the Conquer. On my third bar, I have my instance, or whatever my clan uses for certain skills. And then I have my buff set up. So with the hybrid, I have my healing, my 2 healings right here, my instant recover, and then my recovery over time. And then it goes the same way with my vital, instant, over time, and then instant. I kind of flip-flop them. And then it just goes with a little bit of a shield, and then all my actual buffs. So I have on one an actual buff, and then there's a shield, another shield, a buff, and then a shield. And I never trained the resurrection skill that we got, just due to the fact that we don't really need it at the time being, because not a lot of people die. But if I'm more running into a group later on, I will eventually train it and get that up. But for the time being, since I mostly do solo, I don't need it. So that's basically how I have my skill set up. And like I said, if I'm running kind of like this extreme dungeon, I'll use melee for most of it. Just because I do kind of the same damage output regardless what I'm using in here from what I've seen. But if I'm like going into LLGC or Patala, I'll switch it up. I'll use not only my melee ability, but I'll use my bracing ability, because I know bosses to a certain extent are going to be weak in that dungeon, and a lot of the mob is extremely weak to Chi-Con damage. However, in LLGC, there will be a room that requires physical damage, and that's where a hybrid will come in best play. So with that being said, that's basically my setup. As for your relic bonuses, I would say it depends on your build. You can go crit rate, free critting way more, and try to balance it out with the crit damage. But I prefer to have crit damage up higher than my crit rate, but also have my crit rate kind of up high. We can get into other attributes later on, as I'm making these kind of stat guides and guides of classes. But it all depends on what you guys want to see. I will say that as a nuker, as a hybrid, I find it a better playing style and a better class used than a nuker, because I just seem like it has more of a damage output for me at the time being. But alright, that's the guide. My guide on personally a little 101 step in on the hybrids. Also, real fast before I end the video, the attributes into your relic, later on I will redo my personal relics and put in a balance between crit damage and Chi-Kung damage. And if there's physical damage existing in the lineup, I will also kind of flip-flop all 3 of those stats around. And then I will also get similar relics with drop rate for the events. But alright, I'll catch you guys later in the next video.